The struggle is real, guys. Hey guys, my name is Tim and I've been fixing BMWs for over a decade now. Today we have 2007 BMW 328i convertible, which is E93 body type. And what we're going to do is replace shocks and control arms. And before we do that, let's start with the signs of failing control arms. So if you saw that and you heard that little click in there, that means the control arms are failing. It not necessarily means that both of them are failing, but at least one of them can do that. I already have seen what's going on in there, so I know which one. And on the other side, it's not doing the same thing, as you also saw in the video. But if you're replacing the control arms, it makes sense to replace both sides, of course. We as the drivers tend to protect our side, the driver's side, more, so the passenger side usually suffers more damage when it comes to suspension. So all the bumps on the road, it's human nature, driver's nature basically, I would say, to protect left side more than the right. That's just how we operate. We also have here a completely torn shock mount on passenger side as well. The drive of this car is pretty much horrible, I would say, suspension wise. If you're new to the channel, check out this project, this exact E93. There is a few videos on the channel already, and I want to remind you guys about the membership program. There's two levels, $5 and $10. For $5, I will reply extensively to your comment about your BMW problems. I use the membership program to help you solve your car trouble. For $10, you can have direct access to me and we can talk, so you can send me data, you can send me codes and everything you have basically, and I'll try to navigate you as much as I can to help you solve your issue. So consider that, and of course like, subscribe and comment below if you have any questions. I'm still gonna answer everything, so as much as I can, of course. So let's get on with the video. So here's how this video is gonna go. First of all, I'm gonna give you a list of tools you need to complete the job. Secondly, we're gonna inspect closely the damage to the control arms and the shock mount and the shocks, if there is any present. And the third one, of course, the DIY. So let's get to it. First of all, you'll need to raise the whole front of the car, and the jacking point on this car is right in the middle, so you can do that easily. But before you do that, just loosen your wheels and raise the whole car up, secure it on the jack stands and make sure it's secure. The second thing is, like, there's a lot of plastic has been already removed on this car. You can check the previous videos for this exact project if you need help removing it, basically, but it's all simple stuff right here. For this job, for removal of the shocks and shock mounts, we will need to remove those braces right here. So those are E14 as I remember, and this one E16 or E18. This one is twists counterclockwise and removed easily. I'm using the 12-point sockets on those bolts because honestly you don't need for such a big bolt. 11mm works just fine right here, but it has to be 12-point, and 14mm works like a charm right here, also 12-point. So let's remove those and continue. Important part, guys, I have seen it a lot. Those open ends should meet in the middle. I've seen people do it backwards like this. This is crazy. This is the right way. So here it is, guys. This is your shock mount on the passenger side. As you can see, there is damage all over. It's completely torn, I would say. That's bad. Let's inspect the other side. As you can see, this side is much better, although it's a little bit cracking, but since we're doing shocks, we do both sides, of course, absolutely. So here's your passenger side control arm bushing on the control arm. This is rearward. So there's two control arms. This is rearward and this is forward control arm right here. And its bushing is right in there. It's really hard to see if there is any damage, so I will have to remove it to see it. But this one, you can see how torn it is, and it's also, there's some kind of damage right here, so I'm not sure about that. Maybe somebody hit the curb. So this is the reason why the wheel is making this weird movement. This damage is enough for it, but I've seen definitely worse. Check this out, guys, what happens when I move the wheel. Check this out. How this bushing comes out just with the movement of the wheel. I will start with removal of control arms. We have 21mm bolts on the bolt joints and 18mm right there in the back. So I'll start with the rearward bolt joint. Access point is from here right beside the caliper. So we're going right there. This gives us enough room to at least loosen it. So here's the bolt. This is the 21mm. I'll loosen it with the breaker bar first and then use the power tool trying to remove it. Sometimes it gets stuck. It has Torx 40 in the middle usually, so you can hold it with the Torx 40 and loosen it this way. There we go, it moves a little. Pro tip, rotate the wheel. There we go. Alright, let's see if the power tool does the job. I hope it will. Definitely saves a lot of trouble. And that means it doesn't do the job, so I will have to counter hold it with the Torx and then loosen it. So that's what we gotta do. Just take your time with it. I recommend you moving the nut because sometimes the Torx 40 fails, so I use it as just to hold it in place. So here's the first one. Now let's return the wheel to the original position, sort of straight up. Let's see how fun it is. Now we're going to remove the bottom 21mm from the other control arm. The other 21, and it will naturally move the wheel all the way here. I still want this in place so I can loosen it better. So let's put the nut back in. Just to hold it, that's enough. And that worked like a charm. Now those two are 18mm, so just hold one in place and rotate the other. Shouldn't be much torque in here. So this is simple. Just takes time. That's it. All right. Now I'm gonna move the wheel and remove both control arms pretty much. So there we go. So now this is not attached. This one is free. It's only attached at the tie rods. And to remove the control arm, basically, all you have to do is wiggle it out of there. So just push the control arm out. There we go. Let's inspect it closely. So here's the control arm bushing, completely torn at all fronts, pretty much everywhere. And under load it makes this clicking noise. and the movement of the wheel that is not supposed to happen. There is a possibility to replace the bushing only, but why would you do that if you have the ball joint here? It's worth replacing anyways, and I mean nowadays like this will cost you about $80. The bushing probably, let's say 30, but to take it out and press it in, it's like so much trouble. It's just so much easier to replace the whole thing. Now I'm gonna remove the sway bar link nut. This one is 16 millimeter, and it countered by on the back end by 16 millimeter as well, but I'm gonna be using just the pliers like this just to hold it if necessary, because the power tool might remove it without holding it in the end. So yeah, just hold it tight. See. Alright. I only need to disconnect it from one end, so that's for the shock. For the control arms, you don't need to do that. Well, let's remove the second control arm. Second control arm, it's once again 18 millimeter, but on the other end you have a thread, so you don't have to hold it. That's just not enough room here to use the power tool, so once again it will just take time removing it, but after that it's pretty straightforward. There we go. There we go. So let's inspect the big one. This thing right here, torn, but this is not important. It can be removed. As you can see, it's just sort of a dust cover. But if you look inside right here, I don't know if you guys can see it, there is a big crack right there. Do you guys see the crack? The bushing is cracked. So here it is, guys. The control arms are removed. If you want to see the installation of the control arms and what parts to use, those are TRW, those are original control arms. I'm going to be using the Lemforder. That's TRW is great as well, but I just prefer Lemforder. Skip to this minute of the video to see how to install those and what to do with them. Now we have this 18 millimeter right here and 18 millimeter nut right here, so one to hold, the other one to remove, and this is to let this whole hub slide out of the shock, which will not do, of course, and you'll have to use, there's a gap in the back where I'm gonna stick the big screwdriver, use a hammer, and just move this whole assembly out of the way. Basically, I will put it on the jack stand. I'll show you how. So let's first start with that one. Now it's really hard to show you guys, but here's the gap that I'm talking about, and you'll need to, there's a special tool by BMW, so you put it in there and twist, but basically the big enough screwdriver and a little bit WD-40 and some hammer strokes basically, and this whole thing will come out. There is nothing else in here, only this bracket for the wheel speed sensor. It goes just like that, so when you're installing, that's an important thing to remember, just like that. So yeah, keep this out of the way, no need to disconnect it, unplug it or anything, so yeah, let's just get this out. So here's the gap. Closer to the shock you get, the better it is. Just go slow. This thing is kind of heavy, so if it falls, it's no fun. But to prevent this from happening, before I continue, let's put something in there. I will put the jack stand right here, so if it falls, it will be caught by the jack stand. Need to widen the gap a little bit. That's actually good. Let's keep the screwdriver here and continue from the top. Now it's going to be the series of manipulations. I'm going to use the shock and the hub just don't go crazy, just a little by little, and plus with some lubrication you'll be able to get it out. I'll keep the screwdriver right there. Sometimes need to readjust it a little bit, but overall that's all it takes. As you can see, it's moving. There we go. So now we'll need to readjust a little. Alright, since I'm on top, I'm just going to use my legs. Now it's moving. Almost. There we go. Now, this is out. Now I can use something like a jack stand to hold it in place. We don't need much. It's still going to be held by the tie rod, but it will give me enough room to remove the shock entirely. Now to completely remove the shock, all that's left to do is those 3 13mm nuts. Mind you, be careful, the shock is not held by anything else, so I would definitely suggest you not to hold it by the spring. Hold it by the shaft. If you have someone to help you, that's great. If not, loosen 2, then the last one, you kind of can do it from the top and hold the shock. Shock is not that heavy, but it's kind of strange to me to remove it with such torn shock mount. I wonder what's gonna happen. Hopefully nothing shoots out. Alright, we got it moving. Now I'm gonna hold it and remove the last bolt. There we go. That's it. Alright, now we'll need to compress the spring. This is I'd say the hardest part. Spring compression. Those are the basic tools you can rent in any AutoZone, and those work. It's like it just takes a little bit of work, but it'll do. You must try to compress it as much as possible. I think usually it's like this much you can do, so between 1 and 3. You can't do all 4, it's pretty much impossible. And one of those will be somewhere right here. I'll put it here, slide it off in a second. So I know for a fact I won't be able to do more than 3. We'll lock that in place. And the other one, I try to do the opposite, so it should be some sort of symmetry right here. It's best this way. So just like that. This one's the easy one. Just put it in place. Alright, that is approximately how it's supposed to look. Now you'll need to compress it all the way down pretty much, like, and if you don't have power tools, like that it will get exhausting. So that's the process that is not necessary to show. Now we have our 21mm nut right here. This is a strange one, but it's possible to remove just with the power tool. There's also, I think it's Allen 6 or 5. Yeah, this is a 6mm Allen right here to hold it. If you have sort of a deep socket that can hold it, that's great, but I think it's doable with this one. And you can hold the shaft actually with the pliers, but alright, it's definitely loose and almost gone. Well, I'm glad this haven't failed. Okay, so what do I see? Yeah, this one. Is it missing? Yeah, this is a strange combo. Oh, I see what happened. Alright, we have this washer that goes over the top, and then on the mount we have a shock mount. This part right here, so it can move freely without any noises and stuff. So it's like, yeah, as you can see guys, this shock mount is completely gone. Like, what happened to it, I don't know, but I'm glad it didn't fail while removing. Installing it back will be a lot of fun, trust me. Now, OEM shocks are Sachs. Other brand I would recommend would be Phoebe Bilstein. There's a B4, which is the direct replacement for those shocks, and I'd like to stay with the OEM. I don't need this car to be sporty, sort of. So yeah, let's just stick with the OEM shocks. There's two different modes, options in there. There's a sport suspension and a non-sport suspension. So this one is supposed to be a sport suspension. So let's open it up. Oh my. Yeah, look who's been dusty. The right and left shocks are different, so let's see. This is not the one. Oh no, that's the one. That's exactly the same. I wonder, yeah, it's exactly the same shock. I want to compare the part numbers before we go. If I could see it. It's right here. Barely can see it. Part numbers has been changed, but it's exactly the same shock as you guys can see. Just comes with the new bolt, of course. We'll transfer all the hardware. I mean, that's unnecessary to replace the spring and the rubbers, everything. But there's an ultimate, well, basically standard test for the shock. See, that means it doesn't work. What it's supposed to be, it's supposed to absorb the shock, not go down and not come back. Check this out. As you can see, that's how it's supposed to work. Not like that. Now the shock mount, limb order, those are the same on left and right. So, very important detail, very important one, to put all of this parts in exactly the order they were supposed to be in. So follow closely to this part of the video while I'll show you how to assemble it so you have it if you forgot how to do it. Now let's go with it step by step. First, the rubber from the bottom. Take it off. It has this tab right here, so this is where it goes. It has the other one, but it doesn't look that great. I know, maybe I should have replaced those, but I always kind of forget. Let's do this, and a bump stop that have seen better days for sure. Then this rubber is fine though, actually. It's in good shape. It's okay. So we'll use that. That's just to keep it all in place. Now we install this piece right here. On non-sport you might not have it. So we have that. And then pay attention, important part. Right here goes this kind of washer with the edge. It fits right in. Just make sure to lubricate it, rotate it. Without it, every time you turn, you'll hear a screeching noise and the steering won't be as smooth. It will not allow the shock to rotate, and it must. So yeah, we have a pre-lubrication here. I also cleaned it up. You don't need to do anything extra. You don't need extra parts either. So keep this shock mount just like that, because this part right here goes on top right here. So, and you can see I didn't remove it, but your spring should end up, if it just jumped out, your spring should end up right here where this wave happens, and the rubber stops it. So that's how it's supposed to be. Technically we can assemble it back now, but you might need to compress it a little more, because that's putting it back is different kind of trouble. Basically I might need to take it off completely and compress 4 points, and then yeah, it's just I really don't like this job. And the bottom end right here should meet the stop of the rubber right there. And of course it doesn't want to go in properly. The middle of the spring is larger, so that makes sense. It's supposed to be something like that. Let's put the washer, don't forget it. Yep. Alright, so here it is. This is sort of assembled, but what you will find out is, oh, those things are not aligning together properly. It's because the spring is not just exactly straight up, so it will take some manipulation, but even though you'll need to fit it through this part right here, and then the washer, and then the whole mount. So it's not the matter of small distance, so you cannot even see it. So that's it will be ending somewhere over here, so we'll need to compress it about an inch. We need an extra inch to finish it, and that's the hardest part, because now we need to compress the spring more. That means releasing it, readjusting, and compressing it more. So what we're gonna do now, I'll move this side over here just enough to catch the 4 spirals. Basically I'll keep this one at 3, but of course I need to remove it and readjust it, and I'll take this part off, of course, probably. Let's do that. So this is a decompressed spring. This is how it looks like. This is how tall it is. So you can imagine the compression, the force that it's compressed with. If you're installing the lowering springs, you'll find it much easier to do this job, because this is going to be exactly pretty much an inch in the front, and you will easily put the shock even on the stock shocks, basically. So, but the sport shocks, they would probably be a thicker shaft right there, but it's like in comparison, it's like this is all out basically. Yeah, you can see how much force it is, and even in this position you can see the shock is kind of tilted. So when we're installing it, it was supposed to install it something like this. So we'll need to compress all that distance to this point pretty much. So that's what, 4 or 5 inches approximately, maybe even 6. In order to find the compression point, what I'm gonna do is I'll take this top part. Nothing happens to this. I'll need to install the shock right here. So once I'm here, I will compress from here all the way to the bottom, and of course the middle portion. So it kind of will be equalized, but not necessarily. That's why during the mobile repair this job is more expensive than if you go to the shop. Why? Because they have the machine. It's like compresses it, you put it together, and it takes a second. For doing it mobily or in your garage, this will definitely take time. And tools, of course, and some frustration, because once we do that and we assemble everything, those parts might be stuck in there, and you'll have to sort of hammer it out carefully so you don't move the rubber pieces or the spring and everything. So it's like there's a lot of frustration with this job, and that's why I really don't like doing it, but what are you gonna do? Gotta do what you have to do, right? So this is approximately how it's gonna look. 4x3. Can't put it here, can't put it there. This one will be installed later on, but as you can see right now, we're already kind of having trouble with it, so I might need to move it later on just to be able to install it properly. So definitely a complex job on the 3 Series. I'm going to compress it now as much as I can, and we'll continue. Alright guys, so this is the max I can do pretty much. This is maxed out, this is close, but going further doesn't really help the case. So let's fit it through. And the bottom will not stay like this. So the rubber goes in there, the bump stop, and the washer. All here. Now, this is fun. I'll need to put this one. The funny part is, basically, what we need to do is to fit it in, put the spring in the position where it's technically supposed to go, but it will not because we have this compressing tool on the way. So it kind of be, everything is going to be sort of angled weirdly, but remember, it's like, yep, something, we're getting close, something like that. That's good enough. Yeah. So it might seem, look at it this way. So everything's twisted and weird, and this is not the way it's technically supposed to be. But once we install the motor mount and the bolt, I at least will be able to release the tension. Everything will sit in the right spot. As right here, the bottom end spring, this is where it's supposed to be. This one is where it's supposed to be. Just need to readjust it a little bit. And now, once I compress it a little bit, I can do it with my weight, but it's sticking out. So, next component right here. I need it to stick out just a little bit so I can put the bolt in. And guess what? It doesn't. But if you compress it a little bit, you might be able to catch the bolt. This is a sport suspension. This is the worst. On the regular one, it's basically a little bit easier. But let me see. I will probably have to compress this side a little bit more, see what it gives me. But this is not enough yet. Usually you can, well actually, let me see. If I press this side more with my body weight, which is not enough, but it's possible a little bit. Yeah, let me compress a little bit more and we'll come back to assembly. Almost got it. Just need one thread and then we're golden. Yep, that's gonna be enough. It's good if you work with someone that can help you out with that, because it doesn't take much force in the end. Everything seems proper. Come on, it's not much left. The struggle is real, guys. So close. We almost got it. Finally. And it's in. That's what it takes. Now look at it. Look at the compression, the way it's done. So now what I'm going to be able to do is fully release the compressing tools, and then the spring will be sitting where it's supposed to sit. Before I do that, you see it's slided out because of the rotation, so I'll need to readjust that, as it's very visible. You can do it just by hands. So I'll remove the compression tools, and it's not going to sit well until I hammer this piece out because of the way it twists. It's like honestly, I don't find any other way around it unless you do have specialized tools for it. Those are specialized, but for BMW 3 Series 3 and 1, this suspension will give you trouble like that, so especially the sport one, this is sort of hell. So let's remove the tools. Now, see what happened? This one got stuck. What are we gonna do? Well, let's remove the other one. Safety pins. This one at the bottom is not fun either. But there we go. It's also getting hot, very hot when you do that. That's pretty much it. There we have it, complete. Now all we need to do is tighten this bolt, and that's pretty much it. Install it back to the car. So those two pins, tabs, whatever you call them, they go in this gap that I showed you before where we stuck the screwdriver. So those go right there, so this will be facing here. This doesn't matter, it rotates, so you can't fit it the wrong way because this bulge right here as well, it will fit only at one spot. So what we gotta do is basically find it, and it's right there. There we go, our 13s, just put a couple in, keep it loose, make it fun. There we go, it doesn't go anywhere now, but I'm not tightening it yet, just keep it like that. We'll fit in the hub first and then continue with installation. Alright, so here's what we got. Remember the wiring, if it's too uncomfortable for you to do with the wires on, just unplug it from here. This is a wheel speed sensor. Well, this one you don't unplug, this is a brake line. So just fit it in. Easier said than done, of course. No magic here. Alright, so we got all those where we need them. Alright, so the initial fit complete. Now next step. Now I'm gonna slightly tighten those 13mm nuts just to make the shock more stable. And you can see, you will see it on your car, that there's marks where the shock was before. Just try to align it this way. It will make things easier for you. Alright, back to the bottom. Now I'm gonna put the jack right where the control arms were. That's not how I planned it, but it actually almost worked. Now, the reason why it's not as I planned, because I have the screwdriver still sticking out in there, and that's what pushing the whole hub up, but it's a bit dangerous. And it's not all the way in there just yet. So let's see, let's release it. Let's see what happens. Yep, it's definitely better now. There's not much left, but since we don't have control arms installed at all, it's a bit tricky, but very doable. There we go. So this is the full capacity. It reaches this point right here. So we are where we're supposed to be. This is the top. This is the max. That's the way it's done. Now remove the screwdriver and put the bolt back in, and it's good to go. Now don't forget to fit in the bracket properly. There we go. Now the bolt. Here. Little bit of a push. All right, 1818. There we go. And now it's time for control arms. Now the control arms, left and right, are different, both of them, so I'll start with the rearward. I will put the links for parts in description. So before installing, do this. Make it a bit loose and movable. We'll start with with this end, put it to the frame, and then put it to the wheel hub. Alright, so we'll start with the front rearward control arm. It might seem like it doesn't fit, but it does. It's just tight like that, so expect it. Okay. Just don't push it too far. You'll need to make it perfect just like that. But it still might be not perfect. Let me see. go. First in. Alright, those bolts are sitting where they're supposed to be. And then the second one. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't have those control arms new. So I'll have to install this one. And I'll replace it without a camera, but for you guys. So this one is facing down. Remember that. I might start with that end, but it's not really absolutely necessary. Let's see. There we go. You might have some trouble fitting it in here, just like the other one when it's new, but it's usually not that big of a deal and can be adjusted. But I definitely recommend you guys to use the proper control arms, which would be Lemforder or TRW. Some other ones are good as well. Just stay away from cheap stuff. You know the reason why? Because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's not easy to adjust it. It's just terrible. Trust me, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble by using the good stuff. Absolutely, for sure. Push. Alright, this one is in, and the bottom bolt, that's the last one. Okay, now when everything is pretty much installed but not tightened, I would start with tightening the bolts at the bushings and then the ball joint. Since the ball joint is a flexible joint, as you know, that comes to last. In regards of what people say on forums, you need to tighten those control arms when the car is on the ground. No, you don't. That's first of all. Secondly, like, really, it's not really gonna happen. I mean, you'll have to have a special lift for that. So, and nothing will happen. The other thing to address, you don't need alignment after replacing the control arms. It's just not necessary. There's nothing's changed. It's they kind of fixed in place. So 99% of the time, you won't need alignment after this job is done, even with the shock, with everything. You will need alignment though if you're replacing the tie rods, because even if you put it exactly where they were, it's usually not. So you'll probably need that. So yeah, let's tighten it up and finish up. Okay guys, this is it. The job is done. Basically one side, the other side is exactly the same. So this is all you need to replace both control arms and the shock and shock mount on a passenger side. Well, basically in the front, because the other side is exactly the same. I hope this video was helpful. So drop a like, share the video, and once again, membership is on. If you have trouble with the car, if you have trouble with this repair, you can ask me. So I will help you as much as I can. This is a frustrating job, I understand that. I would definitely choose more replacing the oil pan gasket, let's say dropping the engine from the subframe, disconnecting all of that, rather than doing shocks. Like, I really don't like it because all this compression and stuff, it's like, oh my. Doing it mobily, basically, it's much harder, or in your garage. That's why I really don't like this job. But once again, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, just kudos to you. For my returning viewers, I love you all. And I'll see you in the next one. The next video update will be on the engine work with this car. So stay tuned. It's coming up next week. And I'll see you in the next one.